So everyone's been asking me when I'm gonna do a tribute to Ozzy. Ozzy Osbourne passed just a few days ago, and my first thought was, what can I say that everyone else hasn't already said? But then later that day, I thought about a memory that reminded me of a special connection that I have with Ozzy's music and how it left me with an awesome memory of my dad. When I was about 7 years old, my brother and I discovered rap music, and after that we were total hip-hop heads. I still liked all the stuff that I liked before discovering rap music, like Prince and Michael Jackson and Madonna and all the stuff they were playing on the radio. And the older I got, the more and more I watched MTV, and I liked all the stuff they were showing. Even though we were watching for rap videos, I liked everything, including all of the rock and metal videos, even though my brother told me I wasn't allowed to like the heavy metal videos. One song in particular that I remember really liking was by Lita Ford and Ozzy Osbourne. It was called Close My Eyes Forever.
If I close my eyes forever.
That song was probably one of my top 5 favorite rock songs at the time, but beyond that, I probably didn't know anything else about Ozzy's music. And then when I was about 13 years old, that's when I started getting into rock music, alternative and grunge and metal, and shortly after that I discovered punk and I went wild with that. But right when I first started getting into rock music, that's when the memory that I'm referring to took place. Now, my dad wasn't a very nostalgic person. He didn't like talking about the past, and he also didn't talk about bands and musicians that he liked. Now, I knew he loved The Doors and Janis Joplin and Jimi Hendrix, but besides that, he didn't really talk about music very much. He just wasn't that kind of person. Now, one day I was out running errands with my dad, and we were coming down Van Nuys Boulevard, and my dad pulled over right over here in front of this building, and he said, "Come on, I want to take you inside and show you this place that I used to go to." Now, I thought this business was still here, and I'm kind of surprised to see that it's gone, but this building right over here used to be Captain Ed's H&H shop, which stood for Heads and Highs, and I believe this is one of the oldest head shops. It's not like nowadays where you have smoke shops everywhere. Also, inside of Captain Ed's, it did not look like all of these smoke shops that you see today. We'll get to that in a little bit. Now, unfortunately, the only thing that's left of Captain Ed's on Van Nuys Boulevard is they do still have the awning right there that says America's Oldest Head Shop, established 1967, and on the side of the building, it still has one of the murals with the hippie art, if you will. And so anyways, we pulled up and parked right there in front of the building, and we went inside, and I don't really know how to explain it. There were beads hanging from the ceiling, there were posters everywhere, there were blacklight posters, there were stickers all over the wall. It was kind of like a punk rock record shop, but for hippies. And there were also glass display cases with tobacco pipes. You weren't allowed to call them bongs or say marijuana or reference that in any way. And actually, while we were in there, another customer called them bongs, and he was told, "These are tobacco pipes. You're gonna have to leave the store." And what does all of this have to do with Ozzy? Well, I'm getting to that. Now, Captain Ed's wasn't a record store, but they did have a little section of music. And so we were flipping through the records and tapes, and my dad all of a sudden came across a tape, and he got kind of excited, and he pulled it out, and it was this very tape right here, Black Sabbath Paranoid. This is the very same cassette tape. I've saved it all these years. This tape was purchased right there inside of that building. My dad took this tape out, and he was like, "Oh man, this is a great record. You have got to hear this." And I was like, okay, I got excited too. And so we bought this cassette tape, and it's kind of hard to explain, but that whole thing was very strange. Like I said, my dad didn't get excited about music. He probably did inside, but my dad just was the kind of person that didn't show emotion. So he didn't get excited about music, about bands that he liked, about albums. And so for him to get excited about a particular album and want to buy it and go home and listen to it with me was kind of rare and really cool. And so we bought this cassette tape, once again, from right there inside of that building, and we took it home to give it a listen. And that was a really weird experience too, because I remember we sat there in the living room together, me and my dad and my mom, and we all just sat together and we listened to the entire tape from beginning to end, both sides, and we had never done anything like that before, and we never did anything like that ever again. And we just sat there listening, not saying anything. I remember my dad looked like he was really enjoying it. I was probably doing something stupid like headbanging or something like that. And then when it was over, my dad said, "So what'd you think?" And I was like, yeah, I really like it. And my dad had a big smile on his face and he said, "All right, well, here you go, it's yours." And it's kind of hard to explain, but that was just a really, really cool and memorable experience for me. Because like I said, my dad didn't do stuff like that. He didn't talk about music like that. He didn't get nostalgic very often. So it was really, really awesome for us to be able to share that moment together. And I remember that after that, I would take this cassette and I would try and play along to Iron Man. I was just starting to learn how to play guitar. And Iron Man, I want to say might have been the second song that I ever figured out on guitar. I figured it out all by myself. I probably wasn't playing it right, and I think I might have been playing it on just one string. And I remember one time my Uncle Rudy had come over, and he was like the cool uncle that played keyboard and played guitar, and he always encouraged me with playing music. And I was in my room playing along to Iron Man, and I didn't know he had come over, and I look up and he's standing there, and I got really embarrassed and I turned down my guitar and turned off the tape. And he was like, no, that was really good. I didn't even realize you were playing along. I thought it was just the record. And that made me feel really proud. And, you know, now that I'm an adult, I realize he probably was just saying that to be nice. And I'm sure it didn't sound that great. And so I thought a fun way to end this video would be to put in this cassette tape and play along to it on the very same guitar that I was playing Iron Man on back when I was 13. Pick this up right here. This is the very same Fender Stratocaster Squire that I learned to play guitar on, that my parents bought me when I was 13 years old, when I started getting serious about playing guitar. And I'm also going to be playing this on the very same model practice amp. This isn't the very same one, but this is the exact same model. So same model amp, very same guitar, very same Black Sabbath cassette. Sounds about as crappy as it did when I was 13. Now, I may not be as big an Ozzy or Black Sabbath fan as a lot of you, but Ozzy's music was responsible for a very cherished memory that I have of my dad. So for that, I am forever grateful. Thank you, Ozzy, and thank you for all of the awesome tunes. And I just want to say that I'm extremely saddened by all of the icons that we lost this week, but hopefully you guys enjoyed my little memory. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.